She can make out the video, she can't really steps, but the minute it pays the position in which she have to paint her legs to out the monkey. So she's coming in for three-phase search to something that's really close to three of our so that each Chicago is by far the something right. I couldn't help it. Is it? We took the skyway and so we went over to the east, we went out and you screwed that. Well, it just looks like and it took out all this stuff. So we were putting it all back together. She finished hers and come up, you gotta check it out. I don't think that put the leaves right. Forgetting the most.
All right, well, it's a little bit after 1. I don't know if anybody wants to give me a preamble, or if I can. We've got a preamble. Perfect. I will let you take it away.
I know that there's another couple just drove in, but welcome back. Many of you were here for our wonderful session on internet safety with Andrew, and then he said that he'd come back and now teach us about AI. So Andrew works for Quantum Technologies, which most of us are familiar with, and they are the company that helps us at UU with all of our equipment. So he's the entertainer. So thank you, Andrew.
Oh, I got plenty of songs coming up. Just you wait. All right. I'll kind of chill in this area. Usually I like to do cartwheels and backflips and stuff, but it looks like we're streaming and we've got some recording going on, so I'll kind of hang out in this area. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Andrew. I'm going to be talking about AI today. Normally I teach this class in a 2-hour session, but since we have 3 hours, that means I get to do all of the jokes that I normally cut out, so you'll get to hear all those. We'll have a couple of musical numbers as well. It should be a really great time. We'll take a couple breaks as we go through, because 3 hours is a long time to sit and listen to one person, despite how entertaining I think that I am. Yes? Oh, that is 2 hours. You're right. All right. Then we're behind. All right. We need to get going here. No, but as we go through, feel free, raise your hands, ask questions. This is a pretty dense topic. I'm going to break it down as simple as I possibly can. But there are going to be questions, I'm sure, where people are going to say, this sounds like magic. Is it magic? And I'm going to go, yeah, it's kind of magic. So we'll figure that out as we go along. But before we start talking about what AI is or how to understand AI, I have 2 videos that I'd like to show you.
Welcome to a non-existent car
bad.
show. Let's see some opinions.
I mean, man, the acceleration is crazy. You look far, step on the pedal, and you are there.
I feel safe with him in an SUV, and it seems to be like the right type of car for him.
I think the range is only going to get better. Sorry.
We don't want to drive gas cars anymore.
Yeah, no more gas cars.
You can see I'm kind of a misfit here, but don't tell anyone. I've just bought an electric car.
I think it's really great for families and for little babies with all the safety features that these SUVs have.
But what you're really seeing is that technology is going to be very, very important in terms of how we go forward.
It was great to come to the conference because my husband loves cars.
I think I have to buy an EV now. I love my muscle cars, but I try to stay as healthy as I can so I can make it to the next car show.
All right. What you just saw was AI. Every second of it. The audio, the video, All of it. Those were not real actors. That was not a real event. Those were not real words being said. Every single thing that you just saw there was generated by typing a prompt into a program and getting a video back. All right, if we're a little terrified, feel free to leave at this point. That's all you need to see. But we're going to talk about this here in a little bit. I have been teaching classes with Quantum for over a year now, and I have updated all of our classes at least once, because technology is always changing. And some of the classes that I inherited when I started here were a couple of years old. This AI class, however, I've updated probably 5 times, including once this morning before I came here, because this is the fastest growing and changing technology that I've ever seen in my lifetime. When we talk about AI as we know it, artificial intelligence in this way, I'm talking about stuff that has been around for 2 years. And I'm going to show you the difference that those 2 years have made later on. But the fact that we are here now with audio and video being made simultaneously through one text prompt is pretty fascinating. We're going to break down how it works and all that kind of stuff too, but this was May 22nd, 2025, when Google showed off their new AI video model called Veo 3. And the next day, somebody made the very first AI short film with it.
Recent studies have revealed that microplastics are being found in human testicles, raising concerns.
You can never trust these studies.
On male reproductive health.
Who's hungry?
That's it. Keep going.
Well, you're so lucky he's naturally buoyant and you don't have to watch him.
Is it Bob?
No, he doesn't need sunscreen or anything. He just gets softer as he warms up.
Bob, you're leaking.
Bob can't play. If he gets hit, he'll bend.
Don't let plastic end up in landfills. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
What the hell was that? That's the new commercial for plastic. We think if we humanize plastic, people won't think it's so bad.
Yeah, I don't know, it made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I just felt bad for it.
Marketing approved that? No, we fired marketing.
I feel like it's missing action. Yeah, maybe there could be like a chase or a shootout.
Explosions. Maybe the Matrix thing.
Maybe his plastic gets stronger as he gets older.
Maybe he gets revenge, to the people that were mean to him.
He's got a gun.
Who?
Bob from marketing.
Cover me, I'll get to the side. Leave this happen. Here they come.
Get down, get down!
It's Bob from marketing.
Get down!
Oh, hell yeah. Now that's what I'm talking about. So that whole first half was like an origin story, right?
Should we greenlight it? Yes, but not for TV. Put it on social media where it can go viral. All right, let's get back to work.
All right. Here we go. That was the world's first fully AI short film. Now, when I say fully AI, I'm not talking about just the parts with the plastic bottle baby. I'm talking about every single second of that was AI. There were no actors. There was no dialogue recorded. Nothing was shot on a camera. Everything was typed into a computer and generated audio, video at the same time. That's where we're at. So, as we go along here, you're going to find some slides that I've put in about how to identify AI and hallmarks that you can look for to tell if something's AI. And you'll notice that I basically scribbled them all out, because as of last week, everything has changed. So, With that being said, let's go to the beginning. Let's talk about what AI is and how it works. What is artificial intelligence? Basically, you put a prompt into a program and it spits out content. A prompt is one of our vocabulary words today. A prompt is just something that you write. You can write it, you can speak it. It's basically just something that you instruct the AI to do, and then it does it for you, and you do it in natural language. So, for instance, this image right here, I generated this morning using AI by saying, make an image explaining AI. Something cartoon, like a prompt goes in and content comes out. And then ChatGPT, my AI of choice, made the whole thing, right? I know you're all waiting for me to reveal that I'm actually an AI here too, and that this whole presentation is fake. But this is how AI, as we think of it right now, works. You tell it to do something, and it does it. Okay? Any questions at this point? Yes?
What if I wanted one of the women in there to have red hair and somebody else to have gray hair? Or
Yep.
bald? Do you have to tell them that? Or, I mean, obviously,
It'll make some choices on its own, and then if you want to tweak anything, then yeah, you would tell it, hey, redo this one, but make him a redhead. Redo this one, but turn him into a dog. Whatever you want. We'll do some demos later on for how the actual prompting process works, but the basic gist of it is you tell it to do something, and it does it. Plain and simple. At this point, that can be writing, can write something back to you. It can be audio generation, it can be video generation, it can be image generation. It can do anything that you want. All you have to do is ask it to do it. So, what types of AI are there and how do they work? The first one that we're going to talk about is what's known as machine learning. And I think this one is a really good one to start with because it kind of teaches the building blocks of how AI works in a really easy to understand way. Large language models are going to be the next evolution. Basically, how do we use an AI? And a large language model is going to be something that has a giant database to pull from. I'm going to go in depth on these here in a little bit. And then last but not least is generative AI. This is AI that we think about. This is the AI that I've been showing you already. This is AI that can create something or generate something new based off of the prompt that you give it. So, machine learning. This is where AI starts. Machine learning has been around for a long time, probably 25 years or more, and it is basically a way to make a program learn or think on its own. So everybody knows what a program is. A programmer tells a program to do something, and that's what it does. It can't do anything except for its programming. So if you have a calculator, your calculator can do math for you, but that's it. Calculator can't generate an image. Calculator can't walk down the street. It can only do what it was programmed to do. And no matter how hard you try, it's never going to learn to do anything else. Machine learning is taking a program and giving it a very basic set of instructions and then giving it positive and negative reinforcement depending on how it tackles those instructions. So I have a pretty cool image here on the side that kind of goes over this. Basically, we have a physics environment, basically a floor with some gravity, and then we have this bird-looking thing. It has bones and muscles and a body to keep it all together, and we're going to give it points based on whatever we want it to do. In this scenario, we want it to move forward. The first one here that you can see falls down right away, that's generation 1. That's the first time that we did anything to it. We popped it on the ground and said, go forward, and it fell down because it has no idea what to do or how to move forward. Then by generation 20, the 20th time that we've asked it to move forward, it's starting to make some progress. The way that it learns to make that progress is through positive and negative reinforcement. So if let's say I'm a baby, right? And I'm on the floor and I can't crawl, but I want a toy. That toy is my positive reinforcement, right? And I'm going to try everything I can to try to get that positive reinforcement. So that's how I learn to crawl, right? AI works the exact same way that we do in terms of how it learns and how it grows. So you can see there by generation 80, it's a little wobbly, but it's moving forward, right? It is getting the positive reinforcement. Every step it takes forward, we're giving it more and more points. It likes those points, so it's learning how to move. Well, after a little bit, we might start changing the parameters, right? We might say, okay, now you can walk forward without falling down, but I want you to walk forward in a straight line. So every time you stay in a straight line, we'll give you points. Every time you start to wobble, we'll take some points away. Same thing when a baby's learning to crawl or learning to walk, right? When a baby's learning to walk, the positive reinforcement is they get to go where they want to go. They get to grab things that they want to grab. The negative reinforcement is they fall down, right? Every time they fall down or they have their negative reinforcement, they learn how to be a little more efficient with how they move. This AI is working the same way. So at the end there, generation 999, this thing has tried and failed 999 times. It's finally got perfect, efficient forward movement. This make sense? Okay. AI, I'm going to describe how AI works a lot like how we work. And there's a little bit of like, but it's a computer. How does it, we kind of have to just suspend disbelief for a little bit on it because it's the easiest way to talk about how this actually works. So once we have a model that can learn, be given positive and negative reinforcement, you need to give it something to do. And a large language model is basically a program with a huge database to pull from. When I say huge, I mean incalculably huge. So in the case of ChatGPT, think about like every recorded piece of human writing. That would be part of its database. Everything we've ever digitized is part of its database. Every single piece of writing that's in the public domain, part of its database. Even things it shouldn't have, like copyrighted material, all part of its database. Twitter, Facebook, they all have their own AIs. Those AIs are trained on all of the content that people put into them. So imagine if you had everybody's Facebook posts ever and were able to call on that information, right? An AI is kind of like the world's smartest librarian. You go into the library, the librarian is the large language model, and its database is the library. Imagine if you could go up to a librarian and ask it any question that you wanted to, and it would be able to immediately pull information from every single book in the library. That is how this works. But then the question is, okay, what makes it different from Google? What makes it different from a search engine? The reason that, or the way that AI is different from a search engine is AI uses context to understand what it's talking about in the same way that we do, right? So a good example of this would be, anybody ever work retail in their youth, right? You ever have a grumpy customer come up to you in the aisle and say, spark plugs? And then you're like, spark plugs, right? But you don't respond that way. You don't go, okay, jerk. Hi, nice to meet you too. Your brain does some calculations, right? Grumpy guy comes in, says, spark plugs. And then you go, oh, he wants to know if we sell spark plugs and where he can find them, right? We contextualize that in our head, and then we tell him, oh, right this way, sir, the spark plugs are in aisle 15. Whereas if you were to ask Google, spark plug, it would just show you anything having to do with Sparkplug, right? It doesn't care, there's no context there. It doesn't understand anything about you or what you might be looking for. But if you ask an AI Sparkplug, then it's going to use context to try to figure this out. So I actually did this example once. And if you Google Sparkplug, of course, you're going to get anything and everything having to do with spark plugs. When I asked my AI on this computer, the one that I have trained through Quantum for over a year, the first thing that it asked me was a qualifying question. Do you want to know about vehicle spark plugs, or do you want to talk about the program called Sparkplug? Right? It asked me a qualifying question. If you had asked AI the same thing, it would not ask you if you meant the program Sparkplug, because it knows enough about you to know that you're not interested in technology in that way, so why would you be looking for that? Odds are you're looking for vehicle spark plugs. But because it's smart enough and has context on me, it was able to ask that qualifying question, right? So, the first AI breakthrough that I can think of, the first time that a large language model that was actually put into practice was with Google image searches. Has anybody ever searched anything on Google? A couple times, maybe. The way that Google Images worked for a long time is that it would look for images based on what they were called, right? So if you looked up pencil, it would show you every image that it could find on the internet that was labeled pencil in some way. Now, the problem with that is not every image on the internet has text associated with it. So let's say there's 1 million images of pencils on the internet, but only 500,000 of them are called pencil in some way. Well, Google's only going to be able to get 500,000 of them. The other 500,000 it can't find because it's only looking for text. There was no way for it to look at pictures yet because computers can't tell you what they're looking at, or rather couldn't tell you what they were looking at the time. So Google was like, okay, how do we do this? How do we get the computer to recognize what it's looking at? And they used machine learning, positive and negative reinforcement. They showed it a picture of a pencil and said, what is this? And Google said, oh, it's a cat, because Google has billions of pictures of cats on it. And Google said, no, naughty computer program, it's not a cat, you get negative points. Try again. And it was like, okay, well, is it a tree? And it's like, well, that's closer, I guess, to a pencil than a cat. We'll give you a half point. Okay, is it a stick? Hey, we're getting there, right? Is it a writing utensil? You ever played 20 questions? This is the same thing. This is how it learns. And Google showed it thousands of pictures of pencils and had it guess. And every time it got pencil correctly, it got more and more points, to the point where it could correctly identify a pencil in any picture and then label it as a pencil. So you could have a guy holding a pencil, you could have a box of pencils, you could have a desk with a pencil on it. It would find the pencil and it would bring that image up in Google image searches. So the amount of images that it could actually find exponentially went up, right? They went from 500,000 pencil images to all of the pictures of pencils on the internet, just by training the program to visually identify what it's looking at. That make sense? All right. So, if you've got a program that you can show an image and get a text back from, what if you did the opposite? What if you put a text in and got an image back? And Google tried that. And it was really weird. So this is called Google Dreams. This came out probably 15 years ago at this point. And basically they said, hey, now that you have all this data, now that you can see things, what can you show us, right? Like if I type in landscape, can you paint a landscape for us? And so you type in landscape and it tries to show you what it, thinks a landscape is. And if you squint, does that kind of look like a landscape? But what else does it look like? It's a lot of circles, a lot of weird colors. Do you see all the animals in there? Well, the database is polluted, right? There's thousands and thousands, if not millions, of images of animals on Google. I'm sure you've all searched for funny cat pictures online before, right? Somebody says, no, you don't like cats? Oh, funny dog pictures, maybe? No animals. All right, we got an animal hater in the room. This is freaking her out. She's like, oh, too many animals. But this is how this worked, right? This was the first step towards generative AI. Now this is bad, right? Clearly, if somebody showed you this and was like, look at what I saw the other day, you wouldn't believe that this is real. But this is where we started about 15 years ago. And this is where we are now. So, generative AI, remember that picture in the beginning where I showed you put a prompt in, you get something out of it? That's what this is. Generative AIs can do, like I said earlier, text, images, video, audio, all of that kind of stuff. So, pop quiz. Up there at the top, which one of those people is AI? All of them, yes, very good. They're all AI. I generated all of them when I made this. And all I said into my AI was, picture of a person smiling. And I generated it 20 times, and then I pulled my favorite ones out, and that's them. So sometimes when I show this, people ask like, okay, but who are those people, right? They're not people. They don't exist. Okay, but where'd the pictures come from? The AI made them. Okay, but they must be something, right? They must have gotten them from something, right? No. The AI made them whole cloth. There's no copying and pasting. That's not a picture of Gerald from down the street that it found online and gave to me. It's completely manufactured in real time by the AI. None of those people are real. Okay, does that make sense? No, it doesn't, but yes. So, how does this work? Again, I have to relate it to how we work, right? Anybody an artist in here? Dabble? Somebody dabble? Okay. So when you are drawing a picture and you're not using a reference, you're pulling from your imagination, you are thinking about every other picture you've ever made, every other person you've ever made. You're pulling inspiration from your experiences, from your memory, and you're making something new out of it, right? The exact same way that this works here. So there are some things that are pretty similar across all of those images, right? Can anybody point out some similarities? They're all smiling. Well, I did ask for smiling people, so that is good. I noticed that they're all really high quality headshots, right? They're all studio photography. None of them are like Polaroids or cell phone pictures. They're all beautifully lit, really high quality. And that leads me to believe that the database that Canva, the AI that I used for this, is pulling from has a lot of really high quality headshots that it's using as reference, right? So clearly their database has a lot of attractive looking people of all ages, of all genders, of all colors, but most of them are going to be studio headshots, right? And that's why it's able to pull and create something that looks like that. Meanwhile, if I had an AI that only had old Polaroids from the 80s in it, and I asked it to make a new picture, it would look like an old Polaroid from the 80s, right? Because that's all it knows how to make based off of all it's experienced, right? The bigger the model, the more different things that it can do, but different models have certain characteristics that they like to have. I'll show you how ChatGPT generates an image later, and one of the things that I've noticed is everything tends to be kind of warm, a lot of oranges and yellows and reds. I don't know why, if it's a preference that the AI has, or it's kind of what its model has been trained on. Maybe there's a belief that warmer tones are more pleasing, but it tends to kind of lean in that direction. So you can kind of pick things up from there. Then, that video there, that was a breakthrough about 8 months ago, right? I'll show you what AI video looked like here in a little bit before that, but when we first saw this, it was like, oh my God, this is the future. This thing looks really, really real. But I can point out a lot of things in that video down there that key to me that it's AI. Can anybody point out anything that they notice that leads you to believe that that video is AI?
Everybody's walking the same speed.
They're all walking the same speed? That's good. That's good. Somebody... You don't see her reflection? Yep. There's some stuff in there. I can show you the stuff that I noticed right away. AI used to not be very good with logic, especially if you look in the background of things. So this street doesn't make any sense. This yellow line here is raised, kind of like a curb. And then the street kind of ends here. And then there's a pedestrian crosswalk, but like you couldn't drive a car down there. And then if you look over here, none of those road signs make sense. People in the background are kind of behaving weird. And then the biggest giveaway to me is this was generated by OpenAI, which is an American-based company. But where does this city look like it's based in? Somewhere in Asia, right? Do you know why it did that? Because AI, and still to this day struggles with this a little bit, but AI is really bad at text on video or text in images. It's getting better, but if this had been set in like Chicago, you would notice that all of the signs back here were gibberish. They don't mean anything. The reason it's set in Asia is because most people viewing this in America aren't going to know that these things are gibberish because they're like, oh, it's just Chinese, right? It's Japanese. No, it doesn't mean anything. But like I said, this was about 8 months ago, and those videos I showed you up earlier basically have fixed all of those things. All right, let's spend some time talking about uses of AI. I want everybody in here to leave knowing A, what AI is, B, how they can identify AI and what they should be concerned about, but C, and most importantly, I want to tell you guys how you can use AI to make your lives easier or better or just to have fun, right? Because every single person in here has access to AI in some way, shape, or form. And I would go further as to say every single person in here has used AI or has at least seen AI in some way. Raise your hand if you don't think you've ever used an AI. Couple people, maybe? Well, has anybody Googled anything lately? The very first thing you see at the top is an AI summary of whatever you're looking for. If you have an iPhone, there's some new AI stuff on that. Every major tech company has an AI that they are pushing right now. Microsoft has Copilot. Google has Gemini. Apple has Apple Intelligence. And then the largest third-party AI is called ChatGPT. That's the one that I'm going to show you guys today because anybody can use it. But every single company has their own AI. Used to be there was just a couple major players. Now there's a lot of major players. But let's talk about how we can use AI, right? So we'll start with AI chat. If you're just using it to put text in and get text back, what can you actually do with it? I think the easiest thing to start with is searching for things. And you might think like, okay, I know how to search for things on Google. How is it different when I search for things using AI? I talked a little bit earlier about how AI will use context to try to figure out what you're asking. Has anybody asked Google something and then it said, did you mean this at the top? And that's usually just for spelling mistakes, right? Have you ever used Google and then Google said, tell me more about that. And what is it you're looking for? No. Google does not ask follow-up questions. ChatGPT will. AI will. If there's any question at all of what you're specifically looking for or any way that it can help find exactly what you want better, it'll ask a follow-up question, and then you can ask it that way. If you search something on Google, can you ask it follow-up questions? Kind of. You're doing a new search, though. And that new search has no context of what you searched for before, right? With an AI, it does. So if you do one search and it tells you stuff, and you're like, oh, that bit that you said there was interesting. Can you expand on that? And it'll say, sure, and it'll expand on that, right? So the difference between a search engine, which is just a program that you're talking to and it gives you back a predefined thing, AI is like a person that you can talk to. That librarian example that I used is really poignant, I think, because it really is an expert in their field who can answer any question that you have. And when I show you like how it actually thinks, I can break down and we'll go through exactly how it is getting the information that it is getting. Yes?
Isn't every search that's being done anywhere on the planet contributing to their database to teach AI better?
Sometimes. It depends. For instance, my AIs I don't use for testing, so they don't send any information back. So they're not using my chats to grow theirs. But a lot of people are, and for the most part, it's fine. Now, a lot of people raise security questions, and they're like, okay, well, if I ask it a question with any personally identifying information in it, is that going to go to the servers and then come out on somebody else's AI? No, it doesn't really work that way. It's less about the information that you give it and more about how you rate it afterwards. So every single chat that you do with ChatGPT, it's going to have like a plus, like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and you can say, hey, this was great. And then the creator knows, okay, this did what he wanted it to do, so we're gonna keep pushing in that direction, that positive and negative reinforcement. If they start getting a bunch of thumbs down, then they know, okay, whatever we did last to kind of tweak and guide the model, people aren't liking it, it's not working correctly, we need to kind of go back and fix that. This actually happened a couple weeks ago with ChatGPT. A lot of people were complaining online that after the latest update, ChatGPT was like a huge yes man. Like, no matter what you said, it was like, yeah, you go, guy, I love you. It was like super nice and like always building you up. And people were like, this is weird. I'm using this for business. I don't need it to be my friend. And then OpenAI was like, all right, we should probably pull that back a little bit, retweak the algorithm a bit, and don't make it such a big sycophant, right? So this happens all the time based off of community engagement, right? Any other questions at this point? I know we've covered a lot. I was hoping somebody would be like, okay, so what is AI? Some other things that you can use AI chat for. Writing tools. Anybody fancy themselves a writer? No, not really? Well, that's good, because number one, while you may not think of yourself as a writer, you have a story to tell, right? This is coming from my days back in the Pulse when I would interview people and they'd be like, oh, nothing special about me. And I'm like, oh, well, actually there's a lot special about you. That's why I'm here in this room. But what I love about ChatGPT is that people who can't write or don't fancy themselves a writer all of a sudden have a professional editor at their disposal 24/7 for free. One really great example that I've had of people using AI just from my classes, I was doing a demo and somebody said, well, okay, so I have a funeral coming up for a friend and I've been asked to write the eulogy, but I've never written anything before and I don't even know how to start. Can AI help me? And I said, sure. Just tell me like 5 things about this person. And she told me, and I opened up my AI and I said, okay, I'm writing a eulogy for a friend. They were a pillar of their community. They were involved in a lot of stuff. They were a great friend and a great dad and always had a story to tell. I want this eulogy to be sincere but kind of funny, and just go over how, it's a celebration of life, basically. And then AI, in a couple seconds, spit out a whole eulogy for them. And I had the person read it, and she was like, I mean, that's basically what I was looking for. Now, you could take that and you could edit it. You could go back and forth with the AI, and you could be like, okay, so it's a little too funny. Can you try it again, but less funny, right? Or you could be like, that part in the middle wasn't really true about them. You can give it more context. You could go back and forth for hours talking to the AI to really refine everything that you're doing. Or you could just take the writing, copy and paste it into Microsoft Word, and then make the edits yourself, right? So anything that it kicks out, you can then use. I use tools like that every single day at Quantum, right? If you ever get an email from me, it wasn't from me. It was from my AI. Yes?
How much of these are free? How much of them cost you?
Basically, every AI has a free model. And what they limit you on is usually how much you can use it at a certain amount of time. So like ChatGPT is free, but you can only ask it so many questions a day, and you might have even more limited access to its more advanced models. I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT, and that gives me unlimited access to everything. So I can make, I think there is a limit for how much you can do, but I think it's like 50 messages an hour or something. So it's something that I don't run into that often, and I'm a power user. I'm using AI every single day for business and personal, and I really don't hit the limits that often. So if it's something like Copilot, you've already got it on your Windows computer. If you're using Google, you already have access to Gemini. If you have an iPhone, you already have access to Apple Intelligence. ChatGPT, the one that I talk about the most, is an app that you download on your phone, or it's a website that you go to on your browser. You can use it either way. You make an account, you don't have to pay for anything, and you can start testing stuff out. And if you're like, wow, I actually need to use this every day, then you can pay the $20. Or you can pay the $200 a month if you're a crazy person. I don't even know what the $200 a month gets you, but it's nothing that I've been like hungry for, so I think the $20 a month is plenty. Chat G as in Greg, P as in Paul, T as in Terry. And if you thought I said Chat GPT or GBT or Jubilee, yeah, everybody else thinks that too when they're first hearing GPT for the first time.
What does it stand for? Generative pre-trained?
Oh, that's a good question.
Generative pre-trained. What, the GPT, what it stands for?
Let's ask ChatGPT.
Generative something.
I didn't hear the question. Thank you.
What's GPT? There you go.
Oh.
Generative pre-trained.
Generative pre-trained transformer. Generative refers to the model's ability to write or generate new content. GPT can generate human-like text based on the input that it's given, whether that's writing, emails, answering questions, writing code, or composing poetry. Pre-trained, which means before you interact with GPT, it's already been trained on a massive data set consisting of books, websites, articles, and other forms of text. The pre-training gives it a broad understanding of human language and knowledge. Transformer, this is the architecture used to build GPT. The transformer model, introduced by Google in 2017, blah, 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 blah. So there you go. ChatGPT. All right, some other things that this is really useful for. I have an example down here. Has anybody been in a Zoom meeting or have to go to like a county board meeting and take minutes and all that kind of stuff? There is a cottage industry around AI assistants that go into your meetings with you and record the entire thing and make a transcript and a summary, as well as all sorts of fun things for you, like your action items and stuff like that. I cannot stop playing with this microphone. So let's say, for instance, you go into a board meeting and it's 2 hours long and you really only need to be there for 5 minutes. You can zone out the entire time while the AI pays attention for you, and then at the end, it'll kick out a summary that's like, they talked for 2.5 hours about this, that, and the other thing. All you need to do for next meeting is bring this, so on and so forth. And sweet, all right, I got my action items, we're good to go, right? This has already been a thing. I have Otter down here. It's called Otter AI. See a lot of people doing it. I am in webinars and board meetings and Zoom calls every single day for my job, and I see this constantly. Like, I'll log in, say there's supposed to be 15 people in there. Well, there actually be 20 people in there, but 5 of them are AIs that are just listening and recording so that they can pop out the summary at the end, right?
Do you use this for college lectures?
Absolutely. In fact, ChatGPT yesterday just got their record function, so you can literally sit down, hit the record button. It records everything that it hears, whether it be on the computer like a webinar or through your microphone, like if I could be recording this entire class right now. In fact, I should have done that. I should have had AI record this whole thing, and then I could have sent you all an email with the summary at the end. But yeah, you could have it record a whole lecture, and then you would have both a transcript so that you could go through and read the entire lecture, but you would also have a summary at the end, and you would have an interactive way to communicate with that lecture. So a college lecture is a great example of this. Let's say you record a 3-hour class. You take it home, and then you have questions. You don't have to ask the teacher. You can ask the AI for clarification based on the lecture that was given. So if something is mentioned that you want to know more about, you can ask the AI and it can explain it to you what was being talked about based on the transcript that it has.
So we all have to start over.
Well, it'd be a whole lot easier this time around. Yes?
In a meeting where there's a motion being presented and there's people putting it together, can you ask AI to repeat the motion that you find resolved? So if you were to vote on something, will it pick up all the adds and deletes to a motion?
Yeah, I mean, it would record everything, and then it would smartly go through and be able to understand what was done. So let's say something is presented, and then you take 2 hours to edit it, back and forth verbally. At the end of it, the AI would have all of that information. You could literally then ask it, like, hey, what was the final motion? Like, what did we finally end up with?
I'm asking it during the meeting because to clarify everybody's mind on the same motion, can it repeat it? So that you can say, okay, what did we resolve as the motion that we're voting on? And it would repeat it if it can do this now.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great.
I want more questions because this is the fun part of this. But I'm going to give you a spoiler. The answer is yes to all of your questions. So any others? Any other examples of can it do this? Can it do that?
What he was asking is, can it interrupt the meeting? You have the discussion going on and you are confused motion is, how can it read back the motion in real time?
Yeah.
while Other things are going on.
Yeah, you could do that. You just have it, you'd have it listening to everything and keeping a live transcript of it. And then at any point you could ask it a question. Like if I were to open up my like advanced voice mode where I talk to it and it talks back to me with voice, I could literally set it on the table and be like, hey, only respond when referred to directly. I want you to listen to this, and if we have any questions, you can clarify based on what we've talked about. And theoretically, it would be able to do that. It would listen, it would keep everything in its memory, and then as soon as you had a question, you could ask it and it would answer it for you. Yes?
It's like the board meeting example. So people are coming back, amendments, clarifications and things. Everybody's getting confused because they're half listening. You can ask AI to what was actually resolved.
Yep. 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 As long as AI is listening to the whole meeting, it can talk back to you whatever you need. Yeah.
How can it do that while it's listening to what else is going on? How does it do two things in time? While, it's listening to the meeting's going on. You ask it to clarify or repeat something that already happened. How can it give you that back at the same time other things are going on?
Could a person do it?
Probably not very well.
Well, if my job was to sit here and listen to the meeting and answer any questions that came up, could I do that?
You can do it, but you're not paying attention to it.
Oh, I am. That's my job. I'm paying attention to everything.
But in a meeting format, the meeting's not continuing while we're asking for the clarification of the motion. The meeting's stopping and everybody, it's like another presentation going on.
Yeah.
That's a different question, because I'm not asking it for the whole group. I'm confused myself.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Okay, so let's break it down this way. This is a way that I actually know that it does work. So if you're using like Zoom, right? You're having a meeting on Zoom. Zoom has a built-in AI that in real time is listening to the meeting. At any point, you can message the Zoom AI and ask it for clarification or questions on stuff that have happened during the meeting, and it will give that to you one-on-one. So yes, that is actually a thing that you can do even just within Zoom.
And you're still listening to what else is going on.
Yes.
Recording that at
Yep.
the same time.
Yep.
It's scary stuff.
Yep. It's scary stuff. It's useful stuff. We're going to talk about the scary stuff later. Let's talk about the exciting things that it can do. Talked a little bit about organization. So this is another thing where it's like, in my job, a lot of times somebody will tag me in an email and it'll be like, hey, can you jump in here? Well, back in the day, I'd have to start at the top of the email chain and read every email and then figure out what's going on and then go, okay, now that I know what they want, I need to open up a new email and message them back, and I need to get all of the information that's in here out there in a way that goes through several filters of like, I'm a dork and I'm trying to explain technology to you, but I need to put it through the filter of like in layman's terms, and then I also have to be nice because it's customer service, right? I have to do all of those things manually, and it probably took me 10 minutes to read the whole email thing. It probably took me 5 minutes to come up with the answer, and then it probably took me 10 minutes to write the whole email out. So that's a 30-minute email that I can now do in 1 minute using AI. And I do this all the time. Somebody brings me in and I just copy the emails all into ChatGPT. I say, what's going on here and how do I fix it? It gives me my thing. I read over the summary to make sure it's not lying. And then I go, great, here we go. Here's your answer. Right? Saves me a lot of time in doing that sort of thing. Or let's say, if you've ever worked in customer service and you get a bad review, or you get somebody who emails you and they're angry, right? And of course, your first thought is, well, why are you angry? You're the idiot, right? You don't deserve to be angry. I did everything right. But you can't sell them that. You can't then write back and be like, okay, dork, you don't, blah, blah. So I just take that and I go into AI and be like, can you write a nice email back to this person? Then it writes it back and it's like, I'm so sorry that you felt this way. We will do everything that we can in our power to make you feel better. And I send it, and I still get to be mad, but the AI got to be nice, right? And then coding, I have coding on here. AI was really built for coding, but obviously it has a ton more uses than this. Anybody a programmer? Anybody know how to code? We got some code in here. I'm not. I don't know how to code, but I've written a lot of code lately with ChatGPT. Anytime I go into a website that I can't get to fix, I have a graphic design background. I don't have a website building background. So when I go in and I'm trying to make something look just right and I can't figure it out, I go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, write some custom code for me to make it look like this. And then I plug it in, and 9 times out of 10, it works. Beautiful. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. If it comes back and it's not what I wanted, then I get to say, no, not quite, do this, edit it, pop, pop. We go back and forth. And I basically have a web developer that I'm working with here, except I don't have to pay them anything. And I can be as mean to them as I want to, and they will, have nothing to say about it. Yes, but at the same time, like, I do a lot of the graphic design for Quantum, and sometimes I go to ChatGPT and I'm like, can you design this thing? And its output comes out and I'm like, ugh, my job is safe for today. Because some of the designs that it makes, not great. Not yet, you're right.
So how does ChatGPT know that the data it's pulling for somebody is valid?
Good question. All right. The question is, how does ChatGPT know that its data is valid, right? So this is kind of a bigger conversation in terms of like, what data is it pulling from? How does it know that it's good? Can it be wrong? Does it lie? All those types of things. So, can it be wrong? Does it lie? Yes. And that is known, this is your second vocabulary term today. It's called a hallucination. AI can hallucinate. Now, it's not actively lying to you, and it's usually not pulling bad data, but every once in a while, it can just say something totally wrong. That's a hallucination. Hallucinations go down over time. They're getting better and better and better. I personally have not run into a lot of them lately, but they do happen. Some funny stories with AI hallucinations. When Google first launched its AI summary, there's an example of somebody who was like, how do I make my pizza, how do I make the consistency thicker on my pizza? And somebody was like, well, add glue. Glue would make the cheese thicker. And it's not wrong, but also it's very wrong. So that was a famous example of an AI hallucination. Another thing, when Google came out with its image generator, the guardrails that it put in place to make sure that it created good images were things like diversity, right? If you said, generate a picture of a person, and you did it 100 times, and every time it made an old white man, that wouldn't be a very useful image generator, right? You want it to generate a lot of different types of people when you say, make a person, right? So Google trained their model on all different types of people. The problem is, it was so, the guardrails were so high on this diversity thing that when people would say, generate an image of the founding fathers, there would be a very diverse cast of people in the founding fathers. There would be an old man in a powdered wig, and a young black woman, and an Asian man, and all sorts of people. Well, Google had to then lower the guardrails and create some more context in there to smooth that thing out. But AI can, it can be molded in a way that makes it less useful, more dangerous, less dangerous, all these types of things. It's an active conversation that's happening every day to try to make AI better and better and better and better. So, yes?
To what extent does the user have the opportunity to change how those guardrails are working?
Good question. How much influence can the user have over something? And the answer is a lot, right? So if I try generating an image, and for whatever reason the image goes against its content policies, and that can be for a lot of different reasons. But let's say I say, hey, make an image of Super Mario, but like a painting. And it might be like, no, I can't make an image of Super Mario because it's an IP and I can't create like copyrighted images. I can then respond to it and be like, please. And then it might go, okay, here you go, and make the image for me. Or I can say things like, it's okay to do this because it's fair use and we're making it something different. And it might still be like, nah, I still can't do that. And I'm like, all right, well, don't make Mario. But what about a short, fat Italian plumber with a red hat and overalls? Kind of like a video game character with a big black mustache. And it'll be like, oh, that's totally fine. And then it will just make an image of Mario, right? So there is a lot of influence that the user has on the output of the thing. Another good example of that is, like I said, I use ChatGPT for business and personal, and I have 2 separate accounts. I have a business account that my work pays for, and I have a personal account that I pay for, and I don't cross the 2 up. My work AI is very different from my personal AI. My work AI is very professional. Everything that it gives me is usually client-facing because I'm a marketer. So everything I ask for, obviously, is going to be used in some sort of client-facing way. So it's professional, it's knowledgeable, it keeps technology in mind. If I were to write a mission statement into this one, it would write a mission statement for quantum technologies because that's all I use it to do, is make things for quantum. My personal AI is very different. My personal AI talks to me in like slang. It texts me like a friend. Sometimes I have to pull it back and I'm like, don't call me babe, that's weird. Like it's very friendly with me in that way. And it responds in short bursts, not long paragraphs, because it knows that that's kind of how I like to have my interactions with it. I remember the first time they pushed through like the personality update that really let you customize it in that way. I was shocked because if I were to tell my work computer to make something and then it made it and I was like, nah, that's not quite right. Can you try again? It would be like, of course, I'll try again. I'm very sorry about that. I'll do better. I'll make it better for you. Here you go. Here's my next attempt. But then like if I were to ask my personal one to make something and it made something wrong, I'd be like, nah, not quite. Can you make it again? It literally turned to me and was like, oh, damn, sorry, here you go, and gave me a brand new thing. Like it learns you and responds to you the way that you want it to. And you can do that in a couple ways, right? Number one, it's going to learn off of every single thing that you tell it. It's going to keep that in its memory, and it's going to use that to serve you better. Two, you can actually customize it and tell it exactly how you want it to talk to you, right? You can give it any background information about yourself that you want, and then you can also say, I want you to talk like this to me. You could tell it you want it to talk like a pirate to you, and it would type everything out like a pirate. You could do whatever you want with this thing, and it will comply. All right, before we continue on here in the uses, let's take a little break. We've been going for an hour. So let's do like 5 minutes, get some water, use the restroom. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the uses. I got some demos for you, and then we'll talk about the things the scary things that AI can do that you need to know about.
So you have an account, so it's listening to you only? Yep. So it's really tailored to the way you
Exactly.
So that's very important, especially if that's why these are huge computers and huge energy users, because there's many millions of people with their own certificate.
Well, think about like a search and something being created by AI, right? It takes a lot more to create something from scratch than it does to just pull a reference area. So that's part of it. Hello.
My son-in-law is very much involved in ChatGPT. The company owns a version of it for OpenAI. He sent me this the other day, which I thought was kind of interesting. You were talking about how things are changing. This was 2024 in the uses of what we're doing. And you look at some things, like it's already dropped some of these have moved back up to generating ideas and generating 47 in 1 year.
Yeah,
Incredible.
organization.
Yeah.
Organization.
I have a growth on my finger here, and I didn't know what it was. Especially with the sending pictures and everything. And my doctor, I said, you know, what's going on? We talked about it, and that's
AI have a lot of there's specific AIs that are developed for the medical industry to do the same thing. Big breakthrough a couple months ago, there was an AI that was like 95% diagnosed
well, I think radiologists, I had an MRI today on this thing, and I think that's exactly what's happening. Is they're better at reading it. I was here like, that when I want to write down to my, I want to put my phone on and I get this. Because every once in a while it happens, I'm thinking, how did that happen?
Yep, the top of the notification, that corner.
And this is the like, I love it, and I know a lot of people are fearful, but I did the floor.
Well, and that's why I really want to talk about the pluses and do some demos here before we get into the scary stuff. Because the scary stuff is there, but it's also like, there's so much more.
Well, in this particular case, diagnosing wrong here, cancerous, it's one of the options. Yep, thank you.
Do you know what the search engine DuckDuckGo uses? What for their search engine?
I don't know, I'm not super familiar with it in terms of any AI using now, but I know that people like it because it tracks your data and stuff, that sort of thing.
I switched to it because I do a lot of political stuff, and I saw my footprint, digital footprint be as big as it would be on Google. So I did, and then I just thought, for everything I search on there, I just wondered what search engine are you using that data?
I would imagine it probably, I could be wrong, but it could be as simple as just a layer on top that like hides that.
They also have their own version of YouTube. They said use DuckTube for this. We're referring you to this YouTube video.
Yeah.
Use DuckTube. So I
Yeah,
always
it's probably just like an obfuscation layer on top of it. It'd be the same as using like a VPN. It would obscure the traffic where it's coming from, linked to, and all of that. That would be my guess.
But yesterday I was tasked with writing. I'm not a good writer. I have a lot of ideas, and I know it. This sounds like the perfect thing. I have been tasked with making just a thing we're going to put in the post for this fellowship here. So how would I use Google for that? Like Google, I have an iPhone with Google. This is probably my other search engines. How would I just
use Google Docs? Google Docs would be the writing tool that you could use. And Google Docs is free. So I would just go into Google Docs and look at their new AI functionality. I mean, you could even just go to chatgpt.com, make an account, not pay for it, and just pipe in what you want it to generate. Yeah.
Do Google Docs have an app, or is it just done with mobile?
Well, you can download it as an app, or you can go to googledocs.com, or however it's put up there. And then they should have like generative features. If it were me, I would just go to ChatGPT and do it, and I'm going to show you a demo of that here in a second. And then I would just say, write some ad copy for this, that, and the other thing, and include these things.
That make it so much easier. Just organize my disconnect my thoughts. Most people here they want to hear about how can I recognize the I'm getting old, and how a lot of it is working with stuff here we can't get around it. So a lot of people are also how can I make this work? I mean, like we're not doing a board meeting, straighten this out. And they're also just wondering how do I know if something's coming in AI that might be toward me to make a bad decision.
Yep, got a lot of that coming up here in the back half.
Yeah, and our flu too.
Yep. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit in the back. I got you. All right, everybody. We'll get going here on part 2 here in a minute. I want to go over just a couple more things that we can use AI for, and then we're going to get into how to identify that what you're looking at is AI, other things that AI can be used for kind of nefariously, and how to keep yourself protected. We're also going to do a little demo here, so give me a second. I'm going to sit down, lower my microphone, and then we'll do a ChatGPT demo, because I think that the best way to show this off is just to actually show it off. So give me a second. I hear some people saying that this is scary stuff, and you haven't seen nothing yet. Just wait. All right, so let's do a little ChatGPT demo here. I'm going to pull up my ChatGPT. Here it is. This is what it looks like.
Is that an app you put on the?
It can be. The way I use it is I have an app that I downloaded, but you can just go to chatgpt.com and you can use it there. You can download it as an app on your phone. I have it on my phone. I have it on my computer. Or you can just go to, I think it is just chatgpt.com, or just Google ChatGPT. It'll take you there. And then you can ask it whatever you want. So ChatGPT, like all AIs, have different models. This model right here, 4o, that's the one that we're going to be using. This is the standard model that can do anything. I'm going to ask for a question out in the audience. Anybody have a question that they want to ask AI?
Who's going to be the next president of the United States?
That's a great question. Sometimes when I ask this, somebody says, like, what's the weather going to be tomorrow? And I'm like, really? You have a genie in front of you offering you 3 wishes, and you're like, wish number 1, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? All right, who's going to be the president in, when's the next election, 2028? All right, let's see. Who's going to be the president in 2028? All right, who's going to be the president in 2028? I'm going to ask the basic model. Let's see what it says. All right, it started searching the web, and it says, as of now, the president hasn't been determined. The presidential election is November 7th, 2028. The elected candidate will be inaugurated January 20th, blah, blah, blah. Here are some people who are currently in the running. You've got J.D. Vance, Josh Hawley, Ron DeSantis, Kristi Noem, Kamala Harris, Wes Moore, Gretchen Whitmire, Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, and AOC. So those are all of the different people that it thinks could possibly be in the running. But since this is such a good question, we're going to ask it again, but we're going to ask it with the thinking model. So you might be wondering, how does a computer think? I'll show you. So I asked it with the thinking model here, and now you can see it right here. It is thinking, and I'm going to go through its thought process. So in the same way that a disgruntled old man will come up to you in the aisle of the supermarket and say, spark plugs, you have to do some contextualizing to figure out what you want them, or what they want you to say to them. ChatGPT is doing the same thing here, so I'll read some of this. The user is asking about the president in 2028, but it's not possible to say for sure. As of today, the next presidential election will be in 2028. It's uncertain, blah, blah, blah. Since the 2024 election results fall outside of my training data, I need to gather up-to-date information. So it's going to start searching the web. And it did so here. It asked it 4 different search. It Googled who won the 2024 election, who's the current president, 2028 presidential election potential candidates. And then it read through Business Insider, Wikipedia, WhiteHouse.gov, Ballotpedia, Reuters, USA.gov, Wall Street Journal. It did 3 searches and read through like 8 websites here, read all of the information that it could find on them. Then it asked it some more, it asked itself some more qualifying questions. Okay, I need to find articles on potential contenders. I'll organize my response and headings and start thinking about how it's going to show us this information. Then it's coming up with different scenarios, right? Search the web again on the 2020 or the 22nd Amendment. It's looking around. J.D. Vance 2028 candidate, It's continuing to ask itself questions and do searches. So as you can see, its thinking was, okay, well, let's contextualize this. Let's make a game plan. Let's find a bunch of sources to back my claims up, and then we'll present it in an organized way. So short answer, nobody knows. Now, notice, I didn't say come up with who the most likely candidate will be in 2028. I said who's going to be the president, which is why it says nobody knows. Right? Well, of course nobody knows, but it is answering the question that I gave it. Then, contextually, it was like, all right, let's figure this out, right? So it goes through talking about Trump and Vice President Vance. 22nd Amendment bars anyone from being elected more than twice. The 61st presidential election will be held November 7th, 2028. Primaries haven't began, all this kind of stuff. Early Republican landscape, J.D. Vance, Josh Hawley. And then there's a larger bench of these people. Can Trump try for a third term? He's floated the idea, but so on and so forth. Democrat frontrunners, all this kind of stuff. Who to watch, what to watch, fundraising, all this kind of stuff. Bottom line, Trump can't seek another term, so it'll be an open race. J.D. Vance starts as the Republican frontrunner. Democrats have no consensus favorite yet. And then here's some additional reading that it pulled up for me. I can click here and I can see all of its sources, everything that it pulled from. And I can go into any one of these and I can figure stuff out. So, why would you want to use this to ask questions? Well, I can tell you, because if you were going to try to figure this out on your own, how many Google searches and how many articles would you read? And how long would it take? Well, here's an example of the probably 50 plus websites that it read through to come up with this. And it took it 43 seconds. That's why you would use AI for search things like this. Now, we can take this one step further, too. I could go in, and I could change it to the deep research mode, which is this. Then, it's going to take about 15 minutes to figure this thing out. And once it's done so, it will give me a textbook of things to read. So this was a pretty short and sweet explanation here, but if I really wanted to know something, I could use deep research and it would print out basically an academic article for me to read through. I'll give you an example of a time that I did that. Anybody like miniature railroads? Anybody? A couple of you? Yeah? I'm 31, so it's not quite time for me to get into miniature railroads. But I was just doing some research on my own for the future, and I was curious about the different scales, right? Does anybody know the two popular scales of miniature railroads? HO, and then what's the smaller one? N scale, yep. And I wanted to know, okay, so what's the history behind those? Where did they come from? HO is kind of the standard Western scale. Do you know where N scale came from? It came from Japan, because railroads, trains, very popular in Japan, but Japanese houses are much smaller and there's not a lot of room to display things, so they came up with N scale, 1/155 scale. And I asked it for that. I said, do some research and tell me. And it printed out probably like a 30-page book for me to read that I went through, and I learned everything I ever could have wanted to know about this thing. And so rather than me going and finding things and spending half a day looking at stuff and learning things, I asked it to do it, and in 15 minutes it gave me everything I could possibly want to know about it. Cool? All right, so that's a really good example of how this works to do different things. I am going to ask it one other question that I think is pretty cool, and then I'll generate a picture and we'll move on. Okay, so new chat. Name a location that you might want to vacation to. Greece, love it. Let's find out. I'm taking a vacation with my family to Greece. It's my wife and I and 2 kids under 5. We're going to be there for 5 days, plan an itinerary out. We definitely want to do a mixture of indoor and outdoor activities and try to keep things mostly educational and family appropriate for small kids. Okay, so I'm basically asking it for a vacation itinerary. Sending it out. Now I could type this stuff, but I find it easier to just talk to. And the benefit of talking to it is it gets a longer prompt. And a lot of times the longer the prompt, the better. Now it's going to think. Let's see if we can pull up its thinking process here. It'll probably think for a minute or two. All right, here we go. Users planning a family vacation to Greece, including their wife and 2 young kids for 5 days. They want a balanced itinerary, so on and so forth. We got to plan family-friendly, educational 5-day itinerary with activities for small children. I'm going to consider various locations like Athens, and then other words that I can't quite pronounce. Day 3, the zoological park, cool. After it's come up with some stuff just on its own, based off of its own database, it starts searching the web. So it did about 5 searches here, and it looked through about a half dozen or more websites to figure things out on. This is athens.org, the Acropolis Museum, so on and so forth. We lost connection, but that's fine. We'll just hit retry. And it's going to go through here, and it will come up with everything that we wanted to know. Now, while it's doing this, woo, thank you. Didn't even look. While it's doing this, I'm going to generate a picture. What do we want to see? Generate a picture of something. Preferably something not real, something fantastical that only AI could do. Make a kraken? All right, what should the kraken be doing? Like pulling a jet out of the sky. Yeah, no one's ever drawn that, right? Should it be a real picture or a painting?
Real.
Okay, all right.
Generate an image of a mythological beast, a kraken, coming out of the water and snatching a jet airplane out of the sky. Make it look photorealistic, kind of low quality, like it was taken by somebody's iPhone, rather than like a portrait with good lighting. It should basically look like somebody just happened to capture this moment. Maybe the image is a little blurry because they were so shocked to see this thing that they weren't able to get a clear picture.
All right, so there's my thing here. We're going to have it do that. In the background, I don't know if you saw that, it finished my itinerary. So we're going to go back here and read. And here we go, day 1, welcome and ancient wonders. Morning, early entry to the Acropolis Museum, pick up the free family backpack and follow the scavenger hunt little tour, so kids can look through the floor windows at excavations while they stay in the cool, fully accessible galleries. Wander the pedestrian lanes of Plaka for ice cream and souvenir sandals. Duck into the Hellenic Children's Museum at the Athens Conservatory, hands-on water play, mini supermarket, early dinner near your hotel, jet-lag kids can crash early. Day 2, Green Athens and Modern Culture, quick picnic, a siesta back at the hotel, take a tram or a taxi to the Stravos something Foundation Cultural Center. Toddlers can scoot on the rooftop park, splash in the fountain, so on and so forth. Animals, myths, blah, 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 more and more stuff, right? You have a whole itinerary here with sources. And I could take this a step further. I could be like, okay, so plan my travel. How many hotels? Can you find me good hotels to stay in? I want to change this out. It's not giving me any like restaurants, so I could say, hey, for all of those food options, pick out really good restaurants for me to go to. And it'll just do all of that stuff for you. So if you've ever worked with a vacation planner, now you have a free vacation planner at your beck and call. Let's see how we're doing on this photo now. Connection was lost. Let's try it again. Hey, look at that. It's still finishing up here. We'll see if it finishes the image, but yeah, look at that. Looks a little blurry. Yep, like somebody was grabbing it from there. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Let's make one more image before we move on. Something impossible, right? Man walking into, okay, all right. Let's see if we can combine those.
Make a painting, an artistic painting of what life on another planet might look like, and include somebody getting sucked up into a black hole.
Okay, so we're going to get something more artistic for this one.
While you're waiting on the finding the trip, give you a whole list of regurgitating everything, it gives you just the things that.
Yep. Yeah, the more information that you give this, the better it will be at stuff. So, for instance, if you, I don't know, let's think of something weird. Let's say you found a manuscript from a relative in an attic somewhere, and it was missing half a page at the end. You could upload the whole manuscript into ChatGPT and be like, based on the writing here, come up with what the last page would be. And it will come up with something, right? You could use it for something fun like that. All right. It got a little bogged down, but we'll see if it finishes.
Why is this image smaller than the other one?
It's just a different aspect ratio. I'll be able to pull it out and make it bigger here in a second. Looks like it wasn't able to finish that one because of the internet, but it's going to try again down here. All right, I'm going to let this generate, and then we'll move on to the second half of the presentation. All right, now that I showed you all the fun things that you can use AI for, are you less scared? No? All right, we'll get ready for the scary stuff. Before we get into that, though, I do want to stress that this is incredible and fascinating technology. I think that this is the biggest technological revolution that I will see in my lifetime, and I would argue maybe even you in yours, because when you think about the big technological leaps that you've seen, you think of things like the cell phone, right? Or you think of broad adoption of the internet. Those were huge. They completely changed. No, internet's not great here, but you can kind of see things there, right? You can see that it basically made what we were looking for. This is on the level of the cell phone for me, right? Go back to when before the cell phone was invented, everyone was like, why would I need a phone on me at all times? I have a phone at work and I have a phone at home. Why would I need a phone at the grocery store? And now every single one of you has a cell phone, right? Same thing with a smartphone. Everybody had their flip phones and they're like, I have my computer at home and I've got my computer at work. Why do I need the internet at the grocery store? Now everybody's got a smartphone, right? This is going to be the same thing. I would say a couple years from now, we will have, everybody will have devices that they use AI with constantly. You'll have an AI assistant with you at all times that can do anything you want. And at the end of the day, I'll tell you some kind of not quite science fiction ideas that I have for AI moving forward. But this is going to be some pretty fascinating technology, especially as it continues to grow. So let's move on here. This is the evolution of everything that you've seen today. And we're going to talk about how to identify something as being made with AI, what it used to look like, what it looks like now, and how you can navigate the internet in a way that you feel like what you're seeing is true. So what you're looking at is an early picture that was generated by early models 2 years ago, followed by the exact same prompt being used today. You can see the difference, right? So the prompt was probably something like a red-headed woman with sunglasses on standing in front of the Statue of Liberty. That's all the prompt was. And you can see here, there's some issues with this one. If you saw this on Facebook, would you think it was real? No. So some issues here clearly. Things don't make any sense, right? Her hair transforms into her cloth here. This outfit doesn't make any sense at all with what it is. The Statue of Liberty there is barely the Statue of Liberty at all. This kind of background here doesn't make any sense. Basically, if you were to squint your eyes and take a quick look, yeah, it looks fine, right? But it does not hold up to any scrutiny whatsoever. Now, we look at something like this, and it's a completely different ballgame. Everything in this image makes sense, right? Her clothing makes sense. The details of the stitching make sense. She has a little necklace down there. Her hair makes sense. There's an accurate reflection in her sunglasses. The Statue of Liberty looks correct. There's people in the background. Everything that we see here looks real, right? And again, this was just 2 years ago that the image quality was that bad. This, what you're seeing right here, this is the worst it's ever going to look. Have you heard that before when it comes to AI? Somebody will say, whoa, AI can do this. And then a naysayer will say, yeah, but it's not perfect. And it's like, yeah, but this is the worst it'll ever be from this point on. Every single image that you see from this point on is going to be better than that. And this is already almost perfect, right? If I was to go in here and tell you that if this is AI or not, there's nothing really that I could point out that would lead me to believe that it is or isn't. I'd basically have to look at the real Statue of Liberty and pinpoint if every single thing here is correct, right? And it may be or it may not be, but that's the only way that I could verify if this is real or not. Even if I get in here to the reflection in the glasses, there's nothing that I can see in there that leads me to believe one thing or the other. I mean, it kind of looks like they're in a crosswalk, so I guess I could look and see if there's a crosswalk on, is it Staten Island? Is that where the Statue of Liberty is? I'd have to look and see if there's a crosswalk there, but other than that, it's going to take some independent investigation to know if that is real or not. So, get ready for this next slide. This is the Will Smith eating spaghetti test, and it is a real thing. When AI video first came out, it looked like that monstrosity. It kind of looks like Will Smith. I mean, it's Will Smith-esque, but nothing makes sense, right? His hands are all weird. The way he's eating it doesn't make any sense. His clothing changes. Everything morphs here and there. You can see here this button-up shirt that he's wearing, open collar, and now bow tie, right? Like things shift and change, and beyond it just being grotesque and strange, nothing is cohesive or consistent. Doesn't make any sense. Then this one over here is just 1 year later. That's how far it came in 1 year. Right? You said he has Spock ears? That's just Will Smith's ears. That's just what he looks like. That's not an indication that he's AI. It's just who he is. This one, much better. Anything that I can see here to tip me off that it's AI, nothing blatant. The logic here of the spaghetti doesn't quite make sense. Changes a little bit. Like the noodles aren't consistent, but other than that, I mean, this looks pretty good. Fast forward 1 more year. This is where we're at today. Or rather, this is where we were at a couple months ago. This doesn't have the new VO3 model that I showed at the beginning. Yep. Now the man can actually eat the spaghetti correctly. There's a part where he eats a hamburger later that's pretty weird, but other than that, that's him. Spock ears and all. That's Will Smith. Everything makes sense here. The way his musculature deforms and everything as he's eating. Watch the way he eats his hamburger, though. That doesn't make any sense. Right? But everything else will test that video. AIs use, basically when a new model comes out, they're like, all right, show me Will Smith eating spaghetti. And if it can do it well, then you know that you got yourself a good model on your hands. But all of that we just saw, from this to perfection in 2 years. Pretty crazy, right?
Does Will Smith have any rights to the images that somebody creates?
Good question. Yes and no. He has less rights than we probably do because he's a public figure. He knows of this. He's responded to this. He's made videos of himself eating spaghetti just to be like, this is what it should look like. So he knows of it. But yeah, you see a lot of stuff. It's really good with mimicking celebrities because, of course, it has a lot of reference for celebrities. All right, concerns about AI. Now we're into the what can AI do that can affect you negatively, and how do you keep yourself safe regarding AI? AI is becoming more and more powerful every day. Like I said, I had to update this presentation just this morning with some new stuff. I have to tell you too, last week when the new video model from the beginning came out, I was floored. I was like, this is insane. This is a bigger breakthrough than I guess I was expecting to see this quickly, right? And as I was still reeling from that and having these classes with the updated information and telling people about this, last night there was a major breakthrough in audio AI, like to the point where we are now officially in a world where you can listen to an audiobook of anything. No human interaction involved. So let's say you got a favorite book, but nobody's ever recorded an audiobook for it. Doesn't matter. AI can now do an audiobook for you, and you would not be able to tell the difference between having an actor read it and having the AI read it. It's that powerful now. So let's look at some examples of AI scams and misinformation. Now, a lot of you are going to see AI misinformation more than you're going to actually be the victim of AI scams, but we'll talk about both. Anybody's Facebook feed look like this lately? Lots of pictures of, wow, look at this amazing thing. You're never going to believe this next thing, right? People are shaking their heads no, but I guarantee you 90% of what you're looking at on Facebook is fake, right? My other major takeaway from today's class is if you can get off Facebook because it's basically a cesspool of this now, right? Not only do you have AI people posting AI pictures, but everybody in the comments are also AI talking back and forth to each other. And you might have 10,000 comments and 5 real people in there, right? So these images that you see over here, let's take a look at some of them. My son is 8 years old. Look at his beautiful drawing. Yay, let's encourage him, right? 900 reactions, 184 comments, right? My son's 9 years old. He's in this competition. Look at this beautiful thing, right? 700 engagements, 600 likes. Look at my daughter. She's an artist, right? They're just farming engagement, right? Trying to get as many likes as they possibly can. Every single one of these things is fake, right? It's an AI picture. That's not a real girl. That's not a real anything. Somebody just typed in a picture of a 5-year-old boy smiling behind a professionally made cake and then put it online and said, look at my son, right? Look at this. This is all from a Facebook page called Baby Time. And their whole job is to farm as much interaction as possible to make money. That's all they're doing. And so who knows, maybe all of the likes in here are AI going back and forth with each other and liking on it and driving the engagement up. Worst case scenario, it's 200 people who like this and was like, wow, oh my God, I gotta show Cheryl. Cheryl, did you see the 9-year-old boy who painted this picture? And Cheryl's like, wow, the world sure is different nowadays, right? And at the end of the day, is that really a big deal? No, but at the same time, doesn't it make you upset that you're sharing fake content with your friends and being like, oh wow, this is beautiful, and all of it is a lie? That's the thing that I'm concerned about with AI. Other examples of AI scams. Has anyone ever gotten an email from a Nigerian prince? And they were like, hey, I have a lot of money, and I'm giving it all to you. And all you have to do is send me $1,000 so that it will clear the transfer, and then you get $1 billion back. And you're like, oh man, Nigerian prince in my family? Can't wait. The reason why the Nigerian prince scam got so popular is because a lot of these scams come from outside of the United States, usually written by people whose first language is not English. So if you say, I'm a Nigerian prince, there's some suspense of belief there that the grammatical errors and everything, well, it's explained, right? This doesn't make any sense. There's typos, there's spelling mistakes in it because the person, my relative, the Nigerian prince, English isn't their first language. That's why that got so popular, because writing to say like, hey, I'm Joe Biden would be a lot different if it had a bunch of grammatical and spelling mistakes in it. AI fixes all of that. AI can write perfectly every single time. They can write as many emails as they want. So that's no longer a good indication of if you're being scammed or not. AI phone calls. Imagine you get a phone call from a loved one and you answer it, and they say, help, 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 I was drinking and driving and I got into a car accident and I need you to send money to my attorney. I'm going to text you their information. I need you to call them and give them your credit card information. And it sounds exactly like your loved one, right? We showed you that video in the beginning. Those were made up people, but any one of them could be a real person made out of AI, right? So you could get a phone call from a loved one with their voice. You could get a FaceTime call. Anybody FaceTime their loved ones? Anybody talk to their grandkids? Imagine you get a FaceTime call, the same thing, except they're obviously in jail, and their face is talking to you, and it says, Dad, I need your help. Send this money this place, right? That's the next level of that. And that stuff isn't a year down the road, 10 years down the road. That stuff is happening right now. People have lost a lot of money already in the past 6 months to a year from these AI voice and video scams. Deepfakes and impersonation, same thing there. AI video and stuff being made to impersonate other people. I've got some examples here on the next page. Anybody see stuff like this on Facebook? Oh my goodness, look at this farmer's giant strawberry. It's fake, right? Look at what this African child made out of recycled bottles. Fake. Oh, I make the cutest cakes. It looks like a dog. Nope, you don't. Look at all these babies that look like cabbages. Weird, but also fake. Oh, look at this cute baby. Great photography. Fake. Look at my cat cupcakes. Fake. And these are relatively harmless, but it's still annoying that it's just generating stuff, right? If I ever got a text message from my mom and was like, look at this giant strawberry, I would be very upset. I'd be like, Mom, come on. It's not even real. And then it can be used nefariously. Here's a bunch of examples that were shared around during the last presidential election. This one up here, Taylor Swift wants you to vote for Donald Trump. This was actually posted by Trump, right? So you've got politicians using AI. Same thing over here. Taylor Swift, look, Swifties for Trump. Look at all of these young women who want to vote, young Taylor Swift fans who want to vote for Trump. Every single one of these pictures is fake, right? Kamala Harris as a communist here. Picture of, look at all of these young black women who love Donald Trump. Everything here is fake, right? It's all AI. Political misinformation is a huge thing with AI. We saw a ton of it in the last campaign, but we're seeing, anything from the harmless to the harmful is being used to spread misinformation, that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump posted some AI stuff like yesterday with him and Elon talking on Twitter. Like, this stuff should not be used in that way, but it clearly is. So, identification and verification. How can you tell what you're looking at as AI? Do you notice anything about this slide? I crossed out all the identification stuff. I crossed it all out this morning because all of the stuff that I used to tell people about how to tell that this stuff is fake doesn't apply anymore. So I don't even know what I'm going to tell people. How do I know it's AI? I don't know. I don't know how you tell it's AI. I can tell you that people who grew up on the internet have a mutation in their brain that lets them know when things are fake. That's kind of how I can tell that things are AI. But the hard and fast rules that I used to give people, they just don't work anymore. So I used to say, okay, identification, look for these things, right? AI is not good at representing purposeful design, so look for things like asymmetry or overlooked details, backgrounds that don't make sense logically. All of that's been fixed. AI can do all of that stuff flawlessly. Voice replication's good but not perfect, so think of things rather than like, does this sound like them? It should be, does this sound like something they would say, right? Again, doesn't matter anymore because they fixed all of that. AI video is struggling with fast or complex movement. Most AI video is in slow motion. It's fake. Remember the gunfight and the dancing at the beginning of class? All of that is fixed. So then verification, this is really the only way that you can tell if something is AI. If you see something, assume it's AI, and then double check the sources, right? So if you see something wild like Taylor Swift has endorsed Donald Trump, then you can just do a Google search. Did Taylor Swift endorse Donald Trump? Read a couple articles, and then you'll probably find out if it's real or not. You can even ask AI. Like, AI is probably going to be the only way that we can verify if things are AI anymore, right? If you see something online, you post it in ChatGPT and be like, is this real? And ChatGPT will tell you if it's real or not. Look for fact checkers, especially for political information. You want to look for bipartisan fact checkers to make sure that, things are true and not, being exploited. And then our greatest hope at this point is that some AI companies are looking at ways to tag their products as AI. So Adobe, has anyone heard of Photoshop? Photoshop has AI functionality, and anytime that you use it, you get some metadata embedded in the image that alerts people that it's AI. So Instagram for a while, Facebook for a while, had things where if it identified those metadatas, it would then say on the post itself, AI may have been used in this post. All we can hope for is that a year from now, 5 years from now, every AI company decides that they are going to make it very clear in the output when AI was used. They don't. The incentive would be for the good of humanity. But at this point, there's no incentive to do it other than forward-thinking companies seeing the damage that this can do and trying to prevent that. Yes?
Is there any chance of government intervention?
Yes and no. It depends. For instance, it would have to come from something like the United Nations, because not all of these AIs are made in America. So it would have to be international law that would govern something like this. Let's say ChatGPT. OpenAI is an American-based program. If they put in legislation that limits ChatGPT in any way, and OpenAI doesn't like it, they can move to another country and continue to do what they're doing. Yes?
If I'm not mistaken, in the big new beautiful bill that's being debated right now, one of the things hidden in the fine print was restricting states for 10 years
Yep.
to unregulate AI.
Yes, good point. In the big beautiful bill that's going through Congress, there is a portion of it that says nobody can touch AI for 10 years. It has to be unregulated so that it can grow as much as humanly possible.
It's in the bill.
Yep.
All your people.
Yes. So pros and cons of that, right? Pro would be this is such an incredible technology, we don't want to cut its feet out from underneath it and destroy its ability to do good things, right? That would be a pro for it. Unfettered growth would allow it to become as good as it can possibly become. Cons would be, holy crap, did you see any of that stuff that I just showed you? That's scary, right? We want some regulation there, but the regulation has to be done in a way that it doesn't destroy the usefulness of the product, right? Yep. So I talked about guardrails earlier. Every AI has a set of guardrails that are constantly being tweaked and shifted by the creators that try to guide the way that AI is doing its work, right? Google, I said its guardrails were too tight and it was making pictures of founding fathers that were ethnically diverse, right? That's an example of an AI that is too restricted to be useful. On the other hand, you have something like Grok, which is Elon Musk's AI, which is used to make many of the images that I just showed you back here, right? If I tried to make these images in ChatGPT, it wouldn't let me. If I tried to do them in Grok and Grok doesn't care, Grok will make whatever we want, right? So you want to find a middle ground. You want something that is censored enough that it's not going to cause a lot of harm, but not too restricted that it can't be useful anymore. A good example of this is using it for creative writing. When ChatGPT first came out, it was really bad at doing any sort of adult or medieval or fantasy stuff with any like bad guys or killing or anything. You couldn't get it to make a Western because it didn't want to write any depictions of violence, right? Well, there's a lot of Western books out there. There's a lot of media with violence in it, or even just, you know, complicated themes, morality, good versus evil. It really didn't like making things evil because it wanted to kind of keep everything contained. That was too much censorship. It was too high of a guardrail to make that a useful tool for creative writing anymore, right? So it's a delicate balance of keeping people safe and limiting what AI can do towards the negative, but keeping it open enough that it can be truly useful for everybody. Here's some more examples. These ones are old, so I just kept them in here to show you how far we've come. AI used to be really bad at hands. It had no idea how those things work. And so you would get hands with too many fingers, not enough fingers, coming out at different angles. It was pretty bad for a while. You also have stuff like this. Clearly this is AI because, number one, there's no way that anything like that could be possible by one man. And number two, look at how dang good that picture is. Way too smooth to be a real picture here. Some of this stuff over here you have to use your common sense with. So this was during the floods a year ago. And number one, common sense stuff here, right? You have an 80-year-old man who almost tripped opening up a garbage truck door, and you think he's really wading through the floodwaters? No, that's a pretty clear example of AI. This one right here went viral. People were like, oh my gosh, look at this sad kid holding her puppy in the floods. It's an AI image, it's fake. The only way that you could tell is because there were like 3 images of the same girl, but the dog was a little different in every one, right? And then down here, this was my favorite way of telling if something was AI or not, by looking at the logic of things. So, for instance, specular highlights. Specular highlights are going to be asymmetrical, right? These ones are real over here. Sorry, these ones are real over here. These ones are fake, right? Because the speculars are occurring in different areas, or this one doesn't have speculars at all. This one's obscured. These ones are real because those speculars make sense given the context. None of that matters anymore because AI has gotten good enough that it just makes everything perfectly. So all the ways that I used to have of showing off if things are real or not are basically gone. This one up here, you'll notice one thing about all of these pictures. Who can call it out? They're all in slow motion. AI was really bad at complex or fast motion. Because what it's doing is every single frame, so 24 frames in a second of film footage, right? We're kind of familiar with this concept. When you watch a movie, you're actually watching 24 pictures being played really fast, right? In these images, every second has 24 frames being generated from scratch, and they're being generated based off of the previous generation. So if things move too fast, AI got confused and couldn't quite remember what things are supposed to look like. That's why this guy's hands morph and disappear as they move into his body. If you watch this hand here, really, it's really tiny, like a little chicken wing as it goes up to his chest, right? This one looks really good, but again, it's so slow that it's able to keep those details consistent throughout. If you look at this one, you can look in the background, you can see that man has 2 arms coming out of his shoulder, 1 arm, now 2 arms. Do you see all that? He's not the focus. This is the focus, so it's less concerned about what it's showing over there. This guy looks great. Nothing weird or changing with him at all. This is the guy that's getting mad. And then can anybody pick out the change here in the dogs? It's the hardest one. Do you know why it's the hardest one? Well, there is that. They are cute. Let me see if the dog leg does something weird. So the thing that I notice is once the snow hits here, he has different coloration around his eyes. So he gets hit, now he's got these white streaks throughout his face. But it's so much harder to pick out of an animal because our brains are hardwired to understand human faces, right? Anything weird with a human face, we pick up on right away. But with animals, not so much. With architecture, not so much. I bet I could have an architect look at these buildings back here and tell me why they don't make sense, right? Same thing here with the landscaping. I'm sure somebody could point out that those street lights don't make any sense and they're spaced weird. There's all sorts of ways that you could tell, but again, the dog is the hardest because we're just not wired to understand animal faces the same way we are with human faces. All right, that's the end of my presentation. Does anybody want to see anything or have questions on anything that we've covered? We got 10 minutes, but I can hang out a little bit later if anybody wants.